Hello and welcome to the New Paradigm Transitions podcast. My name is Grace Gravestock and we have a very special guest today. I will introduce you to Tori in just a minute, but first a quick summary of what we're doing and why am I doing this. My name is Grace Gravestock. Some of you know my story, and if you don't, I have done large-scale technology change implementations for about 20 years. I worked for a lot of big companies. I worked in the UK and all over the US. And even though my life looked great on the outside, inside I was dying. And eventually I realized this through pain in my physical body. I had debilitating migraine headaches for 18 years. And in a very short period of time, I went through a divorce and a downsizing. I was laid off and my whole life shifted. And all of a sudden I had time to explore what was really going on in my life and how I could find more satisfaction. I came to the understanding of human design. It absolutely changed my life. And today, my intention is to help others who have a personal transformation story to share it and to help you or anyone you know who also may be going through something that you don't understand. My intention is to help especially women who are going through some kind of a midlife crisis and want to use it as a catalyst to create a life they actually love. That's actually what has happened for me. And as part of my mission to positively impact 5 million people by 2025, I'm doing this weekly podcast where I introduce others who also have a personal transformation story and now have a product or service to help others in transition. So that brings me to today's podcast. Today, we're going to hear from Tori Rogers. She's going to share her personal transformation story, and she'll talk about who she helps and what she offers. And I put her human design chart here on the side because I'm going to reference it as we go through the story. I want to point out that she has an open solar plexus, and this makes her an empath. So if you also have a chart like this, then you also are an empath, and it's a superpower, but it does come initially with some challenges because everything that's white in your chart represents a lot of things that you're here to become wise about and to overcome. So part of Tori's story today is all the things that she's overcome in her life and journey thus far. And so I just want to point out that she has that in her chart, that capacity to be an empath. She is an empath whether she wants to or not. And if you're interested in knowing more about your chart, please let me know. Happy to help you with that. She also has something else that I want to point out. She has a lot of intuition on the left part of the chart. This is called the spleen center. And these things that are like spokes on a wheel are colors, and they represent what she's broadcasting. And these are particular types of intuition. She's also got connections here between her mind and her throat. She's here to speak her mind. So with that brief introduction about Tori. Tori, I'm so excited to welcome you to the show. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll get into your story.
Hi, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And boy, did you just nail me. That was 53 years of my life right there in that chart. I've always made decisions in my life where it involved helping others, and I've always been a vessel, a receiving vessel, of that stranger on the train thing where people just come to me and disclose their deepest, darkest secrets. And I'm a vault of a lot of information from a lot of people that I don't even know. And they have found whatever I've said as inspirational and helpful. And so I've been encouraged to pass that wisdom and expertise and knowledge and, all life experiences and how I've managed to get through those. So definitely I'm here to speak my mind, and my family will definitely agree with you on that.
You have such a beautiful personal transformation story, Tori. First, before we get into it, tell our listeners just a little bit about what you do professionally, and then we'll get into your personal story and how you came to this place that you're at now.
So professionally, I've always done career paths that have helped others. And I've always received gratification in creating events for people, bringing their ideas and vision to life. That's been my creative outlet. But I also was an educator, still continue to be educational therapy. I do some consulting, coaching. I also will go and be an advocate at meetings on the other side of the table with families representing their kids, making sure schools are in compliance. Personal coaching. I've helped a lot of other people who have been widowed, diagnosed with cancer, getting through. So I've been doing a lot of the coaching and event planning recently. I also am doing voice acting. So something I was encouraged to do as well. And I needed to pivot career like we all have during this crazy time. And so I decided to start doing that. And it's been great fun.
That's wonderful. I know you do so many things. Tell us a little bit about how you came to this place, because I know you've overcome quite a few obstacles, and I know that our listeners are going to be able to relate to many of the things that you've been through. So I know my intention is as you share your story and we help to promote your story, that others will feel connected, possibly connected to you, or to know that there are resources out there. They'll feel motivated and inspired to live their best possible life, to live a life they actually want to live. And I know that we're going to be inspired by your story. So please take it away and tell us more about where you started, and or what were some of the challenges that you overcame and where you are today.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen here a little so you can have an idea of exactly where I'm at and do. Let's go. So this are you able to see it? No, let's
Not
see.
yet. There we go.
Is that there we go. Okay. So as you can see, I'm doing a lot of things. Entrepreneur, I've always been very entrepreneurial. I've always been seen as a coach. I've been writing books. I've been a public speaker for quite some time, about 30 years, and event planning as well. So I wear a lot of hats in my life, but all of those skills tie in together. And let's see, I want to get to the next screen. Here we go. So my story. I'm in a place right now where my life is very comfortable and purposeful. I can think clearly and feel comfortable in social situations. As you can tell, I'm pretty sociable. However, I am an extroverted introvert. So I'm quite happy being alone and quite happy being with others. So it just depends. But during right now, I can be in any social situation and make small talk again. I can enjoy my life without guilt. I can accept myself as I am, which is a constant work in progress, as we all are. And I am now in a position where I can systematically deal with the various issues and challenges that I'm confronted with in my daily life. But I wasn't always this way. In the past 7 years, so many tragic things have happened that even the strong person I am, it really took me down to a dark place. And basically, I just felt damaged and broken. I felt lost and defeated and hopeless. And that was because it started with a cancer diagnosis that I fortunately caught early. I do have a history of health issues, so I know my body pretty well. That same year, I lost a Hanai mom. I was living in Maui, and in Hawaii, you have kind of adopted family members. And so she was kind of my mentor, and I was kind of her like adopted daughter. And that was rough. And then the next month, I lost my husband, which was the hardest thing, because if you knew me during my dating years, my grandmother thought I would never settle on someone to get married. No one would ever be good enough. And I had finally found the person, and I thought I was going to have longevity with that person. And then 2 years later, I ended up finding out that I was BRCA2 positive. And you hear about that diagnosis because so many celebrities started the Angelina Jolie thing. Everyone kept referring to that. So here I was going through 4 years of chemotherapy for my lymphoma diagnosis. I then find out I'm BRCA2 positive. And because I had also had cervical cancer, they decided that I should have a prophylactic mastectomy and hysterectomy. So here I am, single again, in the middle of my life when I thought I found my forever person. I am going through all these physical changes that are going to be lasting. And it just devastated me. And I felt horrible about myself. I felt like a lemon. I did not want to show on the outside, my real feelings. I put a smile on and went out and everything's okay, but it really wasn't okay. So as an entrepreneur, I had a very successful event planning business in Hawaii with a calendar filled with weddings that I needed to attend to, and I needed to be there for my clients. I needed to be there for my pets who were like my children. And, I needed to be there for myself. I needed to pick myself up and heal thyself. So how do you do that? How do you deal with all this tragedy in such a short time? And, I started doing this as one thing happened, and then another thing happened, and I had to go back to the beginning. And then, we never stop having tragedy happen to us. So we have to learn how to deal with it. And as we get older, it just gets more, I'm telling you right now, there's a lot to take on. So it's a good time to start figuring out how you're going to deal with it. And I think one of the things is that everyone tells us to be positive, right? Always have that positive outlook. Well, those negative thoughts are also there to drive us. I thrive on chaos sometimes, and so it wasn't a matter of getting rid of my negative thoughts as it was changing my response. And so to start that healing process, I had to look within and what can I do that I'm going to find healing? What makes me happy? Right? I had to go ahead and make that list. So if you look at how you start healing, you share your stories. As I shared my story, I found people who had similar situations happen to them, and we shared how to deal with it. I had to be honest with myself. I had to stop telling myself I was fine, and I had to allow myself to grieve. And I had to figure out where I was going to go in life with all of these changes happening to me. And I had to give myself a break, and that's really hard to do. So in order to do all that, we make a list of all the different ways that we can heal. And I'm a researcher, so I did a lot of research in terms of grieving and survival through grief. I'm not a support group kind of person. I don't like to talk about negative things all the time. I don't like to focus on ailments, and people don't really want to hear it. I mean, if you go in a group of people, do you really want to bring everyone down with all of the negative things that are happening in your life? No, it's good to have a network of people to talk to and trust with those inner feelings. But for the most part, we don't really want to go out and start spreading that around and bringing everyone down with us. So I think it's important to make a list of all the different ways that you can get help, and that you can help yourself, because you have to be your own superhero and put on that courage cape. I'm sure you found that you had to do that with your situation as well, Grace.
Absolutely. My biggest aha when I came across human design was realizing that I'm not broken. In fact, things that I thought were liabilities turned out to be assets. So I think getting a new perspective on who you are and what your situation is, getting help from someone outside your situation can really help get perspective. I mean, I personally prefer human design, but there's so many other ways. But the idea is to get to reframe your experience, and also to get a different perspective on what you're going through. And it helps to do that by getting some outside guidance or support.
Absolutely. You really do have to just put on that courage cape, I call it, and face what you're going through and figure out what you need to do to get through all the hurdles. And it doesn't mean that you have to hurry through this, and it doesn't mean that it's going to go away real quickly, but it does allow you to function, and get through it at your pace. And so I found that there were 6 main things that helped me regain perspective and kind of change my paradigm. I was, instead of going headed down I don't want to get out of bed and deal with my life path, I looked at, again, what made me happy, and I made a list. And one of the things that I really like to do is laugh. And I love to watch comedy. I love to see live comedy. And I think that laughter is a good distraction. And Charlie Chaplin, I put a quote here that laughter is the tonic, the relief, the surcease for pain. And it's true. It really is true. It is a distraction. And physically, it helps you as well. And it's contagious when you're like that. Other people are around you like that. And I even have a vocal coach who has a podcast that she recently lost her husband, and she's actually doing a podcast now that is putting humor into how she's dealing with it. And it's not making light of it. It doesn't mean that you're not taking it seriously, and it doesn't mean that you're making light of the situation. It is just a coping mechanism, and you don't have to feel guilty about that.
Tori, did you ever try laughter yoga?
I did not. The only yoga I did was restorative. We didn't have laughter yoga in Maui. They're a little behind, but I do want to try goat yoga though.
I've never heard of goat yoga.
So goat yoga is they have the goat there, and they basically freely roam. And when you're in positions, they might walk on top of you, they might come up to you, and animals make me happy too. So I was thinking about trying the goat yoga. I've heard it's really fun. Okay. But I consider, like, for me, laughter yoga is going to a comedy show and everyone around me and myself enjoying that. That to me is that camaraderie and the laughter yoga session, I guess, for me. But that is a thing, and I know it has worked for people. Have you done it?
I did, but when I was at my darkest moments, I thought it felt really absurd to be there, like forcing myself to laugh. I mean, I got the point of it. Like, if you just, the idea is that if you do it physically, your mind will follow. It's kind of like smiling. Like, if you do a fake smile first, your body will start to actually get more positive if you're like in the space of smiling.
Sure. Like a domino effect, kind of a contagious thing with others, but also like a domino effect. Yeah.
So I think it's important to try what resonates with you. And so if laughter yoga jumps out at you, like, try it out. And if it doesn't, try something else. Watch a movie.
Right? Yeah, no, there are so many ways and so many outlets of laughter. I'm just saying, do it. Whatever gets you to laugh is what you need to do.
Right.
The other thing I found that even though I'm a super independent person and I'm used to putting everybody else's problems ahead of mine and being a support for others, was I really needed to have that support as well. Um, but in my own way, and it's okay to set parameters for that. It's not going to offend people because they want to be there for you. And if you tell them how you need them there for you, they're there. They on the other side feel helpless and they really want to support you. They're all different kinds of supports, but I thought this quote just really resonated with me. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about how your perspective and how you deal with it is going to affect others, right? And what you bring to the table in terms of conversation and so forth. So Zoe Clark Coates wrote, one of the things I struggled with most post-loss was ensuring everyone else was okay. That resonated with me because as an empath, that's what I do all the time. Everyone else is before me. I was broken, but yet I felt like I needed to be careful with the information I shared, just in case it upset those around me, as I didn't feel strong enough to pick them up off the floor. It was as if I said it. And that is because I don't let others help me. I just want to turn it around and be there for everyone else. And as I started to sink deeper and deeper, I felt like I liked knowing that support network was there for me at my disposal. And I found maybe non-traditional ways to go about it. So instead of being in a support group where I didn't want to keep talking about the negative things and harping on it, I wanted to kind of fix it because that's what I do. I am a troubleshooter. I limited the amount of people that I shared my information with, and I had a very deep inner circle that I felt connected with, and people who had experienced loss, so they could resonate with what I was saying. They could relate. And that's really important because if someone hasn't been through what you have gone through in any sense, it's very hard to be trusting of their information because they don't really get it. So I think that look for support, whether it's in a small group setting, a support group, one-on-one. It is not a sign of weakness. So what did you find for support, Grace, when you were going through yours?
I was similar to you. I'm used to being the strong one, and I didn't really look outside myself for help initially because I didn't want anyone else to know what I was going through. Frankly, I didn't think it was any of their business, and I didn't want their input. But for me, that's what learning human design was. When I got my first reading, it was a 2-hour reading, and I listened to the recording like 3 times. And it was really in the 3rd time listening, and I was transcribing and I was taking notes, that I had the really biggest ahas. And that became my support. As I started learning more and more about myself, I realized, like I said before, I'm not broken. In fact, there's so many awesome things about me. And so I used human design as a way to start to really love myself. I didn't even realize that I didn't love myself. In fact, I had been conditioned and programmed to think it's wrong to love yourself. Really, you should always put everybody else first. Like you, I'm an empath. And so we always put everybody else before us. And that is also something that we're here to become wise about when we're empaths. And so part of this, what you're talking about, your journey, and for me, it was also learning to love myself and put myself first for the first time ever. And that was allowing myself to be the support for me that I didn't even think about before. I honestly didn't. I really wasn't focused on self-love or self-care or anything before I learned about human design, because I was always so worried about taking care of everyone else around me. And what I learned is that if you can't put the air, like when you're on the plane, they say put your own air mask on first before you help those around you, because if you don't, you're gonna die. You can't help someone else unless you're breathing.
Right. No, and you bring up a good point. I always have a saying that I don't mind being the life of the party as long as I'm not the center of attention. and I wasn't used to having to pay so much attention to me. I always like to distract from me and talk about everybody else, and not be vulnerable in that way. And I think that I had to take a step back and be vulnerable and realize that I did need to focus on me a little bit, that it was time for me and not just time for everybody else. However, another good point, I lived on an island. The entire island is like 100,000 people. And I worked on some other islands as well, but word of mouth is really strong. And I did not want my clients to feel like I was not going to be strong enough for them just because I was dealing with my own issues in my personal life. So I tried to not let everything I was doing in my personal life transcend into my business. In fact, I ended up throwing myself into my business as a good distraction and coping strategy and ignored everything else. And that did help me. That did, and I was creating weddings and events for other people. So I was surrounded by watching other people in relationships with each other, and I had just lost mine. So it was painful, but it was cathartic because I got to see other people enjoying that loving relationship that I got to have and go full circle with. So that was a really good point to bring up. And I would say that was probably part of my holistic healing as well. And one of the things I tell, people when they're sick themselves or they're losing someone, is I tell them to ask for signs. And they think I'm crazy, but I'll get more into that. But your loved one is going to leave you signs that they're around. If you're open to them, you will see them. And so I found this quote that said, loved ones in spirit aren't angry, no matter the circumstances, and they are working to help you also get to that point. And, we all are angry when we lose someone who means something to us, and doing things to deal with that anger and get through that anger. Like we talked about the laughter yoga, and yoga in general is a really great way of meditating and getting through that. Exercise, massage, energy healing, essential oils, all of those things will affect. I actually, because I didn't get final words from my husband when he passed, it was very sudden and unexpected. I was really lacking closure. And you don't really ever get closure with this, but I was really lacking closure. And I carried an immense amount of guilt for not being able to see the signs, for not being able to save him, all kinds of things that you would go through if you were there and that happened in front of you and you tried to save someone's life. And so I had learned of a psychic medium who was near me. Actually, she's world renowned. And I saw her and I went all dressed up. I had makeup on, I did my hair, I had my wedding ring on. I did everything to throw her off. And I told her nothing. She used tarot cards and she did a reading for me that blew my mind. And as a realist, this was a big step for me because I didn't necessarily believe in this. And I was kind of with the attitude of, yeah, let's see what she pulls out. She's just going to ask me questions and do very generic responses. I can't even begin to tell you how spot on and specific with names and my career, things, secrets that I hadn't told anyone. And she nailed him. She I knew that it was him coming through because there were things about him that she couldn't possibly have known. There was no way she could know he saved his twin, because of his condition. The twin got checked and ended up getting a defibrillator on his heart. There was no way she could have known that. Um, but she knew I had the mindset that my husband was chosen because we didn't have children, and the brother was saved because he did. And to come up with that was so bizarre to me because I hadn't even shared that with anyone. So I did energy healing with her, and that was where I really allowed myself to be vulnerable. And I can't even tell you how immensely powerful that was, and releasing it was, and helped put me on my path along with all of the other things that were happening. And I had the signs from my husband to go with it, which was awesome. With that, I did a lot of journaling. Do you find that you still do that?
Absolutely. I mean, the kind of journaling I do most of is the gratitude journaling. And I find that that has helped me so much to manifest what I want in my life. It's also helped to change my mindset and help me to stay focused on the things that are going to help move me forward rather than what could drag me down. So absolutely. There's a lot of power to journaling. I completely agree.
And that gratitude journaling is, the best way, because it forces you to look at something positive, and it could be the tiniest thing that you're grateful for. But when I did my journal, I always put in there something I was grateful for. And it could be the ketchup in your fridge. I mean, because when you're going through that grieving stage, you don't feel like you're thankful for anything, and you have to think about it. But I was thankful for my animals that were there to help me get through it. I was grateful for the network of people that I had around me. I was grateful for a career I could throw myself into. I was, so many things that you'll find are positive in your life despite all of the things that happen. So I put down here just some, journal topics and some of the things that will help you heal in your journal. I got creative with my journal. My cousin taught me about bullet journaling. Did you ever use that?
I didn't use it, but I did read about it. I thought it looked cool.
It's so cool. So it can, again, that creative side and a distraction, and you can decorate it and make it fun. And that way it corresponds with your calendar, because life doesn't stop just because you're grieving. And I got to incorporate what was going on that day in terms of my responsibilities and appointments and so forth with my feelings, and make it decorative. And it turned out to be kind of a diary as well. So I've held on to all of those, and it was really actually healing to do that. Hope and faith. Big ones. Because if you don't have faith in anything while you're going through this process, you are going to lose all hope. I feel like those two things go together. At least they did for me. And, we might feel anger towards God if we believe in God or are religious in any way, that, why did this happen to me? Why doesn't it happen to the bad people? The common things that are said when you're going through these things. And this ties in with some of the spiritual things that were happening to me holistically as well. But in doing so, this also goes into positive thinking. So I thought this quote was fitting, where it was those times when you don't feel like being positive are the times when choosing to be positive makes the biggest difference. And it is an active choice during this process. And it's a process and a journey. And it's, again, not overnight. But I did get signs from my husband, unbelievable ones. One big one was I had a crumpled up cookie in a saran wrap that was in my purse, and I put it on top of the toaster oven. And when I woke up the next morning, it was on my counter in the shape of a heart.
Wow.
I didn't live with anyone. No one was in my house to do that. So that I was like, I know I didn't do that, but it makes you question, right? And on the night before my 50th birthday, I had gone to Walmart to get some things. I was doing a beach day for my birthday, and it was 9:30 at night. And I looked at the sky while I was stopped at a red light, and I saw skywriting. And it had DR and a heart and TR. And I thought, here's my event planning mind going, oh, so cool. Somebody paid someone to skywrite that for someone. That's amazing. And then I realized it was 9:30 at night. And there is no skywriting at night in Maui at 9:30 at night. And then I realized those were his initials and my initials, and that it was for me. And I did not believe it. And I actually rolled down my window and asked the person next to me in the car next to me to tell me what they saw in the sky. And they saw it too.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. So, and these things that happen, they're like unbelievable. So you always want witnesses, on the day of his celebration of life, my friend said, Tori, look at the sky. There's a heart and a 26. Well, that day was the 26th, and our anniversary was the 26th. So that was his message to me, showing appreciation of what I did for his celebration of life and that I was in his thoughts.
Wow.
Unbelievable, right? Like remarkable. Did anything like that happen for you in your life?
Nothing quite that dramatic, no. But I mean, I have had instances throughout my life where I knew that I was being guarded and protected. I went over a cliff once, and I should have really, thinking about it, the car should have gone off the cliff and I should have died. But it was like there was an invisible force holding it up, as I went around this corner, and there were lots of times like that. So yeah, from that perspective, those kinds of things.
Angels. We definitely have angels, guardian angels. Yes. I had a similar experience. It was the anniversary of his death, and I was going to a friend's house, and she had gotten screeners for the award shows, it was around that time. And so I was driving to her house, and I didn't catch the light when it changed, and I thought I still had a green light, and I went through a 4-way intersection on a red light. And as I was going through this red light, I can literally see the cars coming at me from the side, and I'm just going through the light, and I make it to the other side. But it was like a movie scene where it's like I'm invisible and they're just going through me. That's what it seemed like to me. It was the most bizarre situation. And that was when I really believed, yes, we have our guardian angels. And I swear I am not a drug taker. I'm not a hallucinator. I am a realist, and these things really have happened. It's pretty incredible. The last thing that I want to impress on people is that there's no time limit on this, and we are all works in progress. You really need to have time to adjust. You are adjusting to your new normal, just like we are right now with COVID. Yeah. But you're adjusting to whatever you're grieving. Are you grieving an illness? Are you grieving the loss of a person? Are you grieving a loss of a body part? Whatever your grief is about, people think that we're supposed to be done by a certain time. Like, okay, you have your year of first and then you're supposed to be over it, but that's not the case. It took me 5 years to get a clear mind. I literally was just going through the motions. I was there for everyone else. I was succeeding in my business. I had piles of stuff in my office that I never got to. I never opened a birthday card. I never opened a holiday card. I just put it in a pile. I did not want to deal with it. I wasn't celebrating. I was literally just going through the motions of every day and just looking to get through every day. And then, almost like magic, it seemed like after 5 years, my head cleared, like this fog finally lifted. Now, mind you, during that time, I was also going through chemo. You get chemo brain and you don't really want to deal with stuff. But I think, had I not even been dealing with that I would have still been in that same stage. And until you get that clarity, it's fine. But I do encourage you to work on yourself in your own time that's comfortable for you. And it
And
doesn't have to be done in that first year. What did you think with yours?
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a process. There's no one size fits all approach to anything, and that's another thing that I've learned from human design is we're all so different. So even though, I could tell you exactly what worked for me, it's not going to be necessarily what worked for you, but it's important to get those ideas and to have a starting point and to take action. I think taking action is really important, instead of just thinking it's going to magically go away, because it doesn't.
It doesn't. You cannot be passive aggressive about it at all. It is not going to disappear. And eventually it's going to build up. And and sometimes it still does, because I still haven't dealt with everything. And it'll come out in other ways. So I just implore people to face it and deal with it in their way. And I usually will talk to people about those specific ways that work for them and how to incorporate that. And it's over time.
And speaking of that, Tori, I know you have something great for our listeners. So I want to get to that. I want to make sure we get to that before we run out of time.
Yes. So you've created a new you, right? So you're reinventing yourself and finding this new part of your life and coping with everything. It's not your fault. It doesn't define you. The negative is not all true. These are just chapters in a very long book. And the book, I've actually broken down into small books. And so I took my 6 pathways that I just discussed: laughter, support, holistic healing, journaling, hope, and faith, time to adjust. And I put them in an ebook that is your gift for listening today. And you can go with talkwithtori.com and download your copy there. I hope it helps.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tori. What a beautiful gift. I know from reading this that this is very powerful. I was so impressed with how Tori explained her situation. It was very moving. It was very hard to put down. I really just had to read all the way through. And so it's not too overwhelming to read, in one sitting. And it's very inspiring. There's so much there to help you in your journey. If what Tori has said today has resonated with you, if you've had any kind of loss in your life, I know that this can help you. All of these things are things you might have already thought about, but maybe you haven't taken the steps yet. And so this book, ebook that she's going to share with you, if you want it, is just an incredible resource to help you really move forward. And that's the most important part, is take a step today to move forward. And I think, and you said it's free.
Right now, it is a free download. That is not going to stay that way, but definitely as a gift to your listeners, I've put it on there so that they can go and download it from my site right now. And read it and see what you resonate with. And please leave me a comment. Contact me and let me know if any of it actually resonated with you. If you were able to relate to anything in there, I love to hear about that. If it inspired you or helped you in some way, I would love to hear that. So please do share with me. If you'd like to review the book, I welcome that as well.
Awesome. And so, Tori, is that the best way for people to get in touch with you? And maybe do you want to talk about what you offer?
Absolutely. So I do one-on-one coaching, and I will go through various steps with you in the process. And I offer a 1 hour session each week for 6 weeks. And then that can be extended. I also offer just a 2 hour consult. So if you decide you want to do something like that, but I find it's so much better if I get to know you personally a little bit more, and I can really make amazing suggestions and find the best resources for you. Um, Again, it's so helpful to have someone who's been through it and that you can trust. And Lord knows I've been through a lot of things and I've managed to get to the other side, and I'm, open to finding new love now, and slowly but surely. And I've pivoted in my career when necessary, and you just have to make lemonade out of lemons, maybe add a little tequila or vodka sometimes. I don't know, but yeah, that it really helped.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story today, Tori, and what a beautiful resource for our listeners. So if what Tori shared resonated with you, please get your ebook today. It's not going to be free forever, and be sure to tell her that you heard about it on Grace's podcast, New Paradigm Transitions. Thank you so much for joining us today. Any final words from you, Tori?
Oh, I'm just so appreciative of the opportunity to share my story, and to meet you and find another person in my life who I can share these similarities with. That common ground is so important. So thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. We'll tune in next time for another episode of New Paradigm Transitions podcast with your host, Grace Gravestock. Thank you for joining us.